it started as, as extension poultry vets. We have to take care of our producers in the state and also the people that raise poultry. So how can we best work that? And as you know, there's very few poultry specialists, right?
This is Dr. Phil Stair with Dr. Phil Stair Poultry Consulting with Plasnetics, doing a poultry podcast with Dr. Teresa Morishita. And Dr. Morishita, would you go ahead and tell us about yourself, tell the audience who you are, how long you've been where you are, and so forth and so on?
Sure. And thank you for inviting me for the podcast. So I'm Teresa Morishita, and I've been a professor of poultry medicine and food safety at Western University of Health Sciences since 2006. And before that, I worked at The Ohio State University as an extension poultry veterinarian.
For a few years.
For about 12 years.
Okay, there you go. Yes.
And before that, in California.
But no fires back then. So tell us about your education, where you started and all your degrees.
Grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. So I went to the University of Hawaii and received a bachelor's of science in animal science and a master of science in animal science as well. Because Hawaii does not have a vet school, I went to the University of California at Davis, where I got my vet degree, and I was always interested in poultry and birds. So I was fortunate to get a residency in avian poultry medicine. And then I worked in the field there in California. And then also at that time also received the degree for a PhD in comparative pathology from UC Davis.
So you can tell us anything about your specialty work, any type of thesis or dissertation, anything of interest?
Yes. So actually, my master's was in dairy cattle reproduction.
That might be important this day and time with influenza, so that might be a good background.
My specialty is comparative pathology. So my PhD work was done a lot on avian cholera or Pasteurella multasa, looking at the epidemiology. That was a theme for my master's of preventive veterinary medicine. So I continued doing that, looking at other birds and maybe sources of infections, for bird populations. So I did poultry, cetaceans, and raptors with that.
I guess in commercial production, I always said there was a hair somewhere. For cholera to get into a flock, there had to be a mammal involved. Has that been your finding?
Rodents. Yeah, even in my work, in the industry, we have a lot of like the breeder flocks that keep on breaking out, and we find that it's with rodent control too, because they're there interacting with the birds and they can carry that as well. Of course, traditionally people think like the cats because, like the carnivores, they carry that in their mouth. But
I think I don't know if I've documented, but definitely have associated horses, cattle, goats, dogs, cats, but mostly rodents. You're right. Rodents would be the number one. Skunks have been all involved, but yeah, there's usually hair somewhere when cholera hits. So that was California, and you went to Ohio. What did you do in Ohio for those years of extension?
Well, Ohio as an extension. So I basically worked with the commercial industry back in Western Ohio, and then which is primarily the turkeys and layers, some layers in Central Ohio, and then on the east side of Ohio, a lot of the broilers, many Amish growers as well too.
Any fun stories out of those times? I'm sure there's been interesting cases.
Well, that was my first time that I've done a necrops in the field, and there was snow flurries.
Not California, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like my initiation. I remember being that I'm from Hawaii and going to Western Ohio, which is like Fort Recovery, for our first meeting. I remember driving, into that town, and we were having a meeting at a restaurant, and I parked my car and I saw this bar that said Hawaiian Buckeye. And I said, oh, that's a sign. It was a really neat, a lot of great stories out there and a lot of nice people. The people in the poultry industry there in Ohio Poultry Association are so great, helpful. I really loved it there.
But then California drew you back to an opportunity to teach instead of necessarily doing extension.
Family, closer to family. At some point you have to be close to your family, right? As they age and stuff.
Tell us what you're doing in Western now. You're teaching students. I've worked with two of your students as student interns. Mm-hmm. So they speak highly of their time with you.
Oh, really?
So tell us about Western. Yes.
I guess we were kind of unique in the vet schools in that we were doing problem-based learning, which is taking small groups of students. And unlike, like, for instance, when we went to vet school, we had the regular didactic teaching where you learn subjects. But at like Western, they get a case and they're supposed to work through the case and at the same time learn those basic disciplines that we learned about in regular schools, because we had more like immunology, cell biology. So they kind of like integrate it all together. So it's fun working there. So I know some of the poultry cases we have, like there's a case I wrote on infectious bronchitis virus. I wrote another one on Pasteurella. But we have all the diseases that they look at, and they look at the differentials and how to work it up.
Have you done influenza, pneumovirus yet? This is kind of the two hot topics of the day.
We will be. We have another case with influenza, with swine influenza. So, of course, with our cases every week, we try to do one and do comparative medicine that way.
Yeah, they're not specialists yet, but yeah, you use poultry as part of that, right? Like I said, the two students
to at least learn the basics poultry.
Yes. I think I had 2 days of poultry medicine when I was in Tennessee going through veterinary school. So maybe you can do a better job than I had before I did my specialty training.
Oh, yeah. But, it has cut off a lot in the vet schools because like I had one quarter of avian medicine. And I think a lot of schools don't even teach that,
Well, I know the poultry schools. I'm more associated with Mississippi State. I'm adjunct faculty since I graduated in 91. And just getting students exposed to poultry being a huge industry in the state of Mississippi, that's a challenge because many of the students don't want to know anything about poultry. So, to make it appealing and yet make it informative, it's a challenge.
Like when I taught at Ohio, I might have someone interested in poultry maybe once every 3 years. And I was surprised when I came to Western, there was maybe one student every 1 or 2 years, but we really have to encourage people to get exposed,
Join the Poultry Science Association at our inaugural PSA Pacific Rim Scientific Conference, October 13th through 16th in Macau, China. Explore groundbreaking symposia and hear the latest research impacting the global poultry industry. Here is your chance to present your latest work, recruit future leaders, and network with other experts in the field. Help us shape the future of poultry science. Register now at poultryscience.org. See you in Macau.
How many students are per year in Western? How many do you admit?
Now 120.
That's a big class. Okay. That's good. I was thinking when I was in Tennessee, we had one student I can think of about every other year. And we had a small class, like 70 students back then. So let's tell us more about what you're doing today. What's your passions at Western? You have students, of course. I think it's been a passion for a while, but you have some specialty work that you're doing now.
Well, some of the things that I'm interested in, of course, is working with the students. So I continue to do that. We continue to do some of the work with antimicrobial sensitivity, but my more thing that I'm looking for, because this has started since the very beginning, is the transmission of diseases like from poultry. What are the sources, like whether it's wildlife or, like we mentioned before, domestic animals. So, that has always been an interest of mine, like the epidemiology or transmission of diseases, and to protect that. Other things I've been involved in is like writing resources, like books and stuff.
And so I guess some of that is publications and getting the word out. So you're actively publishing currently, or you're involved in textbooks or?
Books, yeah. So the most recent one, of course, I have that backyard poultry, medicine and surgery, but also some um, game bird medicine and management, which I wrote with my friend Rob Porter.
You're also doing some collaborative work with other universities. You're doing poultry in a larger format than just California.
Yeah, yeah. So one of the big things that I've always been involved, and I've was always involved in doing continuing education, is the work with our Poultry Health Management School that we started 24 years ago um, with my colleagues, Ralph Stonerock, formerly from Achy Feeds, um, and I have Todd Applegate, who's now in Georgia. So those are all the original ones that formed. Rob Porter, Mick Fulton. Um, those were the original ones when we started the poultry school. We've added more people to our board, which would be Darren Karcher, Yuko Sato, Lisa Timmerman.
Tell us more about that the school that you put on, where and when, and who's invited, who should benefit.
So one of the things that we started, and it started as extension poultry vets. We have to take care of our producers in the state and also the people that raise poultry. So how can we best work that? And as you know, there's very few poultry specialists, right? So we have to make sure that we can cover that. So one of our ideas in 2001, getting together, and I first had talked with Ralph Stonerock, and we said, like, what can we do? Like, at least like for me being in the state of Ohio as a poultry extension vet, is what can we do to help our industry and to provide continued education? But we said, you know what? A lot of the companies, they work across states too. And so how can we join with our colleagues in Purdue or Michigan State or University of Wisconsin, which was where Rob was at. Now he's at Minnesota, so we're working out of there. How can we do that? How can we help the people in industry? So we decided to form that Poultry Health Management School to provide education because, when you think about it, for the industry, the field service personnel, and also for new people in the allied industry that are just getting involved in that, and to meet people. So not only do we want it to provide the continued education, like what's the newest findings, or if there's a disease outbreak, is to bring people in, let the producers meet them too, because, if that's not my specialty area, they should be able to get in a nearby state help too, because we have to all work together for the diseases. And so one of the greatest things that I like in that poultry school is that we have a time where all the guests or registrants can talk about what are problems that they're seeing, and then listen that there might be other people that might have answers or have went through that, what they have suggested. And I really think that they can also meet each other. And so you have someone else that you can ask questions, if you have. So our big thing is providing continued education, but also to have people to network. And besides that, another goal is, as you know, working in poultry, since there are very few, it's important to get people, that are new in the field and help get them meeting other people and established, because we want those people that will be training to be able to be successful too, you know? So a lot of new, maybe extension vets or whatever.
So what's the format of poultry school? Is a poultry school in person? Is it virtual? Both? Hybrid?
It was in person. We want to do that because the main thing is that not only do you learn like classroom type settings, we have little cases and it has to be very interactive. And we also have some parts like labs where they do hands on training or trying to solve cases and things like that. So it needs to be, for us, it needs to be very important of being very practical too. That they can have hands-on skills. Sometimes we have some of the people from the vaccine companies like test out misting and they show the different spray diameters so that they can see coarse versus fine, just so that they can visualize. We practice how well their injection skills are by putting dye and looking at that. And just the basic necropsy skills. We've had formalized formalin tissues and formalin that they can also see what the disease is, and yet be safe, that it's not a biosecurity hazard.
So how many days does it take? Is it what time of year and where is it located? And
It's like the second week in May, and we have 2 days for broilers and turkeys and 2 days for layers. Okay. Just, and so that whole core group, we used to do that. But new this year is that we want since it's lasted 24 years, and for those of us that started with, it's like seeing a kid that went through your newborn maybe went to high school, and now it's like 24 years old, like it's past college. But we also realize that if in order to be successful for future generations, we need to have, so our younger board members are taking over, and new this year is we put a call out for other people to assist in the school. And it was always our goal is to, have that so that it's a resource nationally. Were you able to join us too, right?
no, I've never been.
For goodness sakes, Phil, you should. We're always looking for people or, from companies, because, like I said early on, it's building networks, and for the new people, for them to get established, to meet the producers and meet other people in the allied industry.
How big is the population? How many students do you have at a time for a week?
It used to depend on how big the necropsy facilities could handle. So from the first 2002, which was the first school, we limit to 30, but now we can handle it to have more. And what I must say is that not only are there academicians in there, but we also need to have industry people. And that's why we have industry people on our board, like Ralph and Lisa Timmerman from Hendricks, to we need to have the industry perspective and to be involved. And we had so many of our colleagues in industry that have been with us since 2000, the first school of 2002, and they are still with us today. And then we have newer professionals coming in as well too.
So location's always the same place every year? Do you all move it around or?
The original was the rotation of Ohio, um, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, and then Minnesota. And with Yukosato from Iowa, we have it in Iowa. One year we had it in Missouri. And so now that we have like a national committee helping to organize, as long as we have a sponsor, and that somebody's willing. Like we were all in the Midwest because we all worked there and we were familiar with the. But if we have a host like Dan Shaw hosting, in Missouri, we had it in Missouri too.
So where do people find out more information? I'm sure there's a website to go to or.
Yeah, there's Poultry Health School.com, and that would have the registration fee. But of course, contacting any one of us organizers, myself, we can put you in touch with them. But also, if you do have new people in industry listening and they're interested in being involved and participating, please let us know too.
So the appeal, you've talked about a range of people from young veterinarians, I guess even old veterinarians, but
let's not say old. We'll just like
experienced.
I'm in that category coming up, so let's go seasoned.
I got white. You got white hair. Yeah, prime, called prime.
Prime, yeah.
But in terms of the population, typically, is it more still in school students, people out working?
Oh no, these are all like the field service people, the
Good.
field managers.
Okay.
We don't have occasionally we'll have students like for us or anybody's organizing that's nearby that we'll have the graduate students come because we're trying to get them interested in. And we always think about research and things like that, but we want them to be interested in continuing education too.
Well, I think some of the established programs, like at Mississippi State, where I did my training, and I'm still faculty there, adjunct faculty. There's no turkeys in the state of Mississippi besides the wild turkeys. So to get an experience with turkey medicine, they'd have to go somewhere else to get that experience. This might be a great opportunity for even established programs to have like you say, a network as well as an experience outside their own locale.
But one of the things that we're trying to do is we want to start an endowment for scholarships for students, like you mentioned about what about the students in school too, because there's tuition and stuff. So if somehow we can support an endowment and bring in the students that might be still in veterinary school or those that are, like maybe graduate school for poultry science, that would be ideal. That has always been our dream from the very beginning when we started, and now we're going to try and do that.
And so in terms of, I think when we talk about the next generation, younger generation, I think about my own children. I got 5, and I've got one that's working for a poultry company, but 1 out of 5, that's pretty good, I guess, 20%. But
Yeah, that's very good.
yeah, in terms of getting other people interested, you have insights on that. They're in California. You've got 100 and some students to work with to get turned to poultry.
Well, I had one student that did a project, with the triple AP, and asking like how. So she was very interested when she started because she said she would have never been interested in poultry if she didn't shadow a vet, and that was Marion Hammerlund and in California. And then she got interested in it. Then she went to UC Riverside and joined the pre-vet club and was still toying with the idea. And then she came to, I went to this Christmas party for the Southern California Vet Med, and she was there as a guest. And her pre-advisor put her in touch with me. And so she, applied to Western and got in. And then for the 4 years, she's been dabbling like in doing little poultry projects and stuff like that. So now she works for the state of California in the California Department of Food and Ag with poultry.
Oh, good. That's a good success story.
But I think the key, like we mentioned before, is exposing people to poultry. And in her study, she found like people get exposed to in class or research, but it's that connection with someone that's really important.
So I guess there in the context of Western University, with problem-based learning, do you always make sure there's a poultry problem that they address each class? Does that go through?
It used to be once a year, and then they did it for twice a year. But I'm hoping, since I'm now one of those leaders to coordinate the class, that we're putting it back for 2 a year.
So in terms of you're working with Western, that's not considered to be a powerhouse of poultry, but California's got plenty of poultry there. Collaborative work, I think, is critical. Anytime you're in maybe a less represented even commodity or area, you need to have your network. And you've well established that. I've known each other for years, and we've not worked together directly. Definitely professional affiliations have helped a whole lot. So in terms of attracting other folks or getting folks involved, I don't know that I have the answer to that, other than, like you say, that they shadow and get exposed to the lifestyle, the interest, the type of medicine that is poultry medicine, versus more clinical dog and cat or pet medicine. And it took me in a personal experience with Dick Boyd when I was in veterinary school doing externships. I went to the Shenandoah Valley, Virginia for sheep and ended up liking the chickens pretty good. So I moved over to chickens for graduate work. I think it is a challenge, for us with the next generation on how to find and then train our replacements. Those are going to take the next generation and take it to the next level. these new problems that we started out talking about, even metapneumovirus. There's new tools coming, but they're not necessarily here yet nor learned yet. We need to learn more about those. Influenza, I know we don't have the final chapter on that yet. It's just really getting speed right now. And, what's happening here in California between the cows and the chickens, and it's scary. We've had our first human death now. That's concerning as well.
I think just like you said, just exposing, or I mean, even like for poultry, there's so much. The poultry industry field is so big. Like if you don't want one sector, you can do something else. You can be advancing science through if you just want to work in a lab or something. So so I think there's the opportunities that you have to show students that there are many opportunities to do.
It's time for our famous three. A worldwide leader in animal nutrition, Adiseo's portfolio of products includes methionine, the full range of vitamins, enzymes, organic selenium, probiotics, mycotoxin management strategies, and palatability products. With such a diverse offering, Adiseo supports its customers with a broad range of expertise, tools, and services to help them maintain a competitive advantage. Adiseo, fueling predictable profits. To learn more, visit Adiseo at www.adiseo.com.
Trying to think what else I should ask you. We've had a lot of fun talking about continuing education, and that's definitely a passion for both you and me. I think you've definitely done it better, more affiliated with the university.
Oh, we're going to get you to be in our program. I got to tell the planning committee.
I can share, like I say, stories and scars, things that I've done wrong. You don't need to do those things again. But I did want to ask you some more personal questions.
I think we knew each other since 1991, didn't we?
That's when I graduated. My program. Yes, it's been a minute. Last century, right?
When was that?
Yeah, right. Oh my.
We're just seasoned.
I said, yeah, not old, prime. We're prime. Yeah. Learned a lot of lessons. Can share a lot of things. But yourself, books that have helped you through the years. Any type of particular books that you lean on professionally, resources.
Well, professionally, as you know, the diseases of poultry is like the Bible of poultry medicine. So that has always been a big help. I know the Avian Disease Manual, but also the Poultry Health Manual by Dwight Schwartz actually has been very useful, especially for as you start out.
And then another question would be, what books, maybe not related to your profession, have you found particularly helpful or insightful?
Helpful and insightful. For books that I read, well, one of my goals was to read all those classics. I know I probably read them back in 8th grade. So I was trying to read all of them. Like this Christmas, I tried to read The Christmas Carol, because I've seen all the plays.
Right.
Stuff,
Yes.
but the actual book is so different from what is portrayed in like your local theater or the child's theater.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I think as we get older, we appreciate more history, and as we get more mature, what we're going to say, prime. The more prime we get, the more we're going to appreciate things that we didn't appreciate when we were younger. And the next I was going to move on is what counsel would you give somebody to be successful? You've been successful in your working with academia. It's obviously a passion of yours. So what would you tell somebody that's up and coming that wants to be successful in whatever particular field?
I think whatever particular field is that you do the best work that you can, and that for me, I am always grateful to when you're least expected. So it's volunteering to do something. And one example is like when I went into Ohio, and we have a lot of calls from 4-H, and I know in southern Ohio, right with the border with Kentucky, and it takes like 2.5 hours to go there because it's country roads. But like those 4-H kids, they wanted to learn, they wanted to do the necropsy, and I'm great, and Claremont County, and I really appreciate them inviting me, and I enjoyed working with the kids, and they get all excited, and their parents too, like necropsing whatever dead things and teaching them about poultry. So I think that being able to volunteer like that was very helpful. But when you help, you don't expect to get anything. And I remember one of the organizers, Alex Keenan, and he had invited me. He knew a friend that has the magazine Poultry Press, which for the exhibitor poultry, and I wrote a column talk, fowl talk article there, which is people write in about different diseases, and I would answer it for them. And I think having that opportunity, you don't expect that, but that opens up a whole new people. So I think when you just go and you work and you do your best, and work becomes like fun, you don't even think of it as work because you just enjoy it so much. I think that's what I would say is the key to being successful. And if people ask, you just volunteer, not even thinking that you have anything back in return, and all these other like blessings come up, or opportunities. So that's what I would say is just do your work, help others, and something.
That sounds like the golden rule: do unto others, you'd have them do unto you. I think that's a good principle to live by for sure.
No, I mean, you don't do things because you want something in return, and these blessings or things just come.
And I think you can attest to how many times you've had a student and you're teaching the student, but then you're learning from the student as well. I think it's pretty much happened to every student I've ever worked with.
And then, like, you even asked me about my bear research, right? Didn't you ask that?
Last time we talked, yes.
No, so like that one, like, when I become a full professor at Ohio State, so how can I give back? So I said, I'm going to volunteer for the city, the Center for Science and Industry, COSI, in Columbus, Ohio. So I did, and, not as a vet, but just as a customer relation person. And then so I hear people like, whatever, I'm standing in line too long or whatever. And you say, oh, here's a free ticket for a tater tot or something, and they get happy. But, you don't think, and you're just doing that. And then one of the perks is you get to meet all the people of the IMAX film. So, you get to meet Jane Goodall or whatever. And there was this bear thing, and I had inherited a grad student doing bears. And I said, hey, you want to go to this bear, meet that person, that natural biologist? And they did. And then they invited us to do work in the Katmai Peninsula. So, like you said, you volunteer and you don't expect anything of it. And things just happen, right?
Yeah. Well, tell us more about that bear story. That's kind of, you got invited to go do the work, but then what was the actual project you were working on?
So the original project that with my grad student is we were looking at the influence of this roundworm, Balis ascaris transfuga, in bears, and the prevalence of that, because just like our roundworms in poultry, when you got that roundworm and it seeds in the soil and it could be there for 10 years or so. So how do you happen when you got this roundworm in bears? And as some of the zoo exhibits, it's like ground, so how you gonna clean it, right? Because it's all natural. Or cement. So in the past, when they had cement pens and the bear things, they used to blowtorch it. But so how do you do that? So we know about the captive thing. So we're saying, like, what about captive wildlife? Do they have that? What's the prevalence? So we got to take a float plane and go to Katmai Peninsula. We also kayak to near Admiralty Island in the southeast of Alaska, and looking at the prevalence of bear for the S parasite. But I'm a bacteriologist by training. So I said, I'm going to train them and look at their antimicrobial resistance as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's One Health. This is a different species, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, since I'm out there, I'm going to get the most that I can.
Great. That's a great story. Great out. I do think about our professional careers, what we primarily do, then what we do secondarily. And, working with students, of course, but then even the other experiences you have along the way. It's been a great career in poultry.
And I'll tell you, I'm not physically fit like you, but when you hear this bird go in the woods, this little legs can go fast. But I don't run because I'm only 5'1", and they say like my height is like a prey, So my grad student and the guides, the naturalist husband, they're like 6 foot something. So I have to be in the middle because I'm a little prey out there.
Well, let's go ahead. Teresa, it's been a great interview, great talking to you, great catching up. So Wise and Ethics appreciate Poultry Podcast, appreciate your time. Dr. Teresa Morishita at Western University, talking chickens, turkeys, any species, even bear. Appreciate the time today. And this is Phil Stair with Dr. Phil Stair, Poultry Consulting. Enjoying to hear about the other side of the country. Thank you so much, Teresa. It's been a great interview.
Thank you for inviting me, and thanks. And it's so good to see you.
Likewise, yeah.